Hello, bonjour. My name's Katrina Little, Head of the Scottish Government Offices in Canada. Bienvenue, Falcha, and welcome to the third in the series of these Scotland House sessions. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today inspiring and multi-award-winning Canadian classical guitarist Tim Beattie. Tim is currently studying at the prestigious Royal Conservatoire in Scotland and is an excellent example of the international talent Scottish higher education institutes attract. Not only this, but Tim's performance is a perfect illustration of the strong cultural links between Scotland and Canada. So it's my absolute privilege to introduce this magnifique, iantoch and wonderfully fitting performance on Canada Day, showcasing Scottish and Canadian music. So without further ado, on behalf of the Royal Conservatoire and the Scottish Government, thank you for listening. Please stay safe and well and enjoy the performance.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm Tim. I'm really pleased to be presenting today for RCS at Home in Scotland House. The tune you've just heard is called Eric's Boat. It's a melody from the Hebrides arranged by GERALD GARCIA. The program I'm presenting today features works of Scottish and Canadian origin. So some more Celtic airs, a couple of Canadian works, and the feature being the premiere of 4 miniatures written by MCLEAN, who is a fellow RCS student, really talented guitarist and composer in his own right. So I'm looking forward excitedly to presenting those in a bit. Now next on the program, however, is the Fantasy on a Canadian Folk Song written by Geoffrey McFadden. Now the Fantasy is based on an old Wade Hemsworth tune called the Log Driver's Waltz. And that tune tells really like a quintessentially Canadian story. Of course, the log drivers used to work in the lumber industry, transporting fallen timber down rivers. And so it took a great deal of strength and kind of resembled dancing in a way, which really fascinated Hemsworth and is the reason he chose to write the tune. One really interesting point I want to make about the tune, is in the chorus, Hemsworth sings of the log driver that he goes burling down the white water. Now, that's a really interesting choice of words, because burl isn't a word you would hear around here very often. It's often mistaken, in fact, for twirl. But burl is an old Scots verb that meant to revolve or to put something into revolution. And this is just a linguistic example, apart from all the musical ones, of the really inextricable link between Scottish and Canadian folk traditions. Of course, there are many Canadians, myself included, who can claim some Scottish heritage, but this heritage is borne out in our culture here too. And so today, perhaps what I'm exploring is the relationship, in a way, between Canadian and Scottish folk music. Anyway, all that to say, I hope you'll enjoy Jeffrey McFadden's Fantasy on a Canadian Folk Song. So next on the program, I'm really excited to be playing Finn McLean's 4 miniatures for guitar. Now since this is the first performance of it, I thought it might be nice to have Finn write up a little program note, just to contextualize the piece a little bit and to introduce it to you guys. So if you can bear with me, I'll just read out Finn's program note. Finn writes, "My 4 miniatures for guitar was one of the first pieces I ever composed, written in the summer of 2019. At the time, I was playing 20th century music for guitar, specifically works by Richard Rodney Bennett, Poulenc, and Britten, and their influence runs through the entire work. I was inspired by their ability to write miniatures that were completely self-contained, but still felt cohesive and concise in a set. I interpreted this by using a consistent harmonic language and recurring rhythmic motifs throughout each individual miniature, culminating most obviously in the penultimate movement of Fantasia, where whole themes and techniques from the set are repurposed and recontextualized." So I hope that puts things into a bit of context for you. I've really enjoyed preparing these works for the concert today, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. So those were the 4 miniatures by Finn McLean. Really tasteful writing, in my opinion. It's super impressive that Finn is able to produce this level of work at such a young age. So really looking forward to seeing where he goes in his career. Finn's just one of the many phenomenal talents in the RCS, and specifically in the guitar department, which I think is ultimately a testament to the incredible guitar community that we enjoy in Scotland at large. I mean, this is a country that has produced some of the greatest guitar players of our time. David Russell, Paul Galbraith, Alan Neve, Matthew McAllister, Sean Shiba, Ian Watt, Sasha Salvioni. The list goes on, but something that I have really appreciated in my time so far in Scotland, and specifically in Glasgow, is how celebrated and supported the arts are in general, and specifically the guitar. And this is something that has been quite fascinating for me to be privy to, especially as a North American person, is that cultural philanthropy and sort of participation is really really common thing. Now the next piece really needs no introduction. It's the Bonnie Bonnie Banks of Loch Lomond. I wanted to play this tune because well, I've enjoyed hikes at Loch Lomond with friends, simply enough, and yeah, I've been there several times and I can't wait to go back. I miss it very much, especially now being home in Canada for a short time. I've spent lots of time thinking about what I really miss, and well, for the most part, it's my friends and instructors at the school, and the great pubs, but also, of course, I miss going out into nature and being able to enjoy all that Scotland has to offer in that regard. Nature and history abounding. So yeah, this tune in particular, the Bonnie Banks, it tells the story of a man who's sort of staring his fate in the eyes. He expects to be executed in Carlisle, and he's singing about well, basically saying goodbye to his lover, lamenting the fact that he will never be able to see her again in Loch Lomond. So pretty sad story, but beautiful tune. So I hope you enjoy my rendition. that was the Intermezzo by Jacques Hétu, the French-Canadian composer. One of my favorite pieces from the Canadian guitar literature, and certainly a real treat to play. Before I introduce the final piece on my program today, I do want to say a couple of thank yous. So I want to say thank you especially to Sam, Ben, and Matt from Artistic Planning for their invitation to play today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of my music. It's been wonderful having something to look forward to in the past weeks when, you know, my schedule has been pretty bare because it's not so easy to have concerts as normal in these times. So I've really appreciated being able to work towards this. I also want to say thank you to Carrie and Katrina from Scottish Affairs for their help with promoting this event. Really appreciate your help. And I want to say thank you to everyone for listening, especially those of you who have listened all the way to this far. So much guitar music. I really appreciate your time and attention, and I hope that you've enjoyed the music today. The final piece that I'll be playing is Neil Gow's Lament for the Death of His Second Wife. Now, Gow was considered to be among the most important Scottish composers and violin players of his time. He was born, I believe, in 1727, so just a couple of decades before J.S. Bach's passing, just for some context there. I read recently that he and his son Nathaniel both were responsible for spreading this Strasbourg style of violin playing. In a time when cultural traditions were rapidly shifting in Scotland, the violin sort of took over and became ever popular in a place where most of the music had been predominated by harp and bagpipes. So Gow is really responsible for spreading the fiddle and making that popularized as a folk instrument in Scotland. This lament was written for his wife Margaret, with whom he was married happily for 30 years. It's a really beautiful tribute, and makes you really feel for his first wife, who was not recipient of such a beautiful tribute. So I hope you'll enjoy Gow's Lament for the Death of His Second Wife. Thanks so much for listening.